Now, what's been your biggest song so far in your music catalog?
So far, Cadillac, one of my biggest records, tens of millions of stream. Martial Law, another one, it's a big record of mine, and then Been a Problem with Yelawolf.
Now, when it comes to either of these songs you just mentioned, are there any unknown facts or stories in regards to them that's never been publicly mentioned before? Could be in regards to creating it, recording it, or releasing it.
Yeah, a couple. I got one for each. Cadillac Music, fun fact, almost didn't even make the album. It was one of the first records that we recorded for Black Sheep 2. Me and Anonymous had just met each other. And when I was putting together the final track list of the album, I had left that record off. I just wasn't really thinking about it. I had made all these other records, and Anonymous was the one to be like, dude, what about Cadillac? That's going to be a hit. And so it almost didn't make the project, and it ended up by far being my biggest record for a long time. Martial Law I made at the height of the COVID pandemic, and I was approaching that EP differently than I did other projects. I was just giving myself a creative experiment, so I was writing down the titles of all the records before I made the songs. So I came up with the whole track list in order before I recorded anything, and then I tried to go make songs to those titles, which isn't really something I normally do, and that made Martial Law, which was a big record. And then Been a Problem on the Yelawolf Black Sheep album with my brother Yelawolf. That was the last record that we made for that project. That was the only record that we made separately. Every other record we made in the studio together. That was the only one we made separately. And then when we shot the video cost me $10,000 extra on top of the budget because we had rented all these clothes from a movie set clothing warehouse in LA that was like this huge place. And so I had to put down an insurance deposit and all this stuff, and I rented all these clothes. Well, before you return them, you have to go get them dry cleaned. So I went and got them dry cleaned, and I had them in the back of this Corvette in downtown LA. And so I had an art loft at the time that I painted in, and I drove there, and I just ran upstairs to go to the loft real quick and grab something. And I was up there for maybe 10, 15 minutes. When I came down, all the clothes were stolen out of the Corvette. And so I thought they were just gonna keep the deposit that I gave, and it was just a huge ordeal. They were like, no, these are actual vintage 70s clothes. We have to charge itemized, and if you don't pay us, we'll blackball you from working at all these other production houses. So yeah, Been a Problem video cost me $10,000 extra, but worth it, I guess.
Care to share the name of that company?
I don't remember, honestly. I probably would have ducked them too, but I didn't want them to, give bad business to the directors who shot the video, because that's really who it would have fallen on. But yeah, fuck them.
Now, when it comes to Cadillac, out of all three, what led this song to get as far as it has today, thinking back? What was the secret there?
It's honestly like every record. I've listened to Rick Rubin talk about this extensively, like in the book he just dropped and in interviews he's done. He makes a good point that a lot of the elements that add up to make a record go viral or go bigger than other records, a lot of them are beyond the artist's control. Like obviously there's an element there of us being genuinely inspired, and we made something that was really authentic to us. Those I think are like necessary base points. But I think with any record's like success, it's always these elements that you just can't predict or necessarily calculate. Like for me, every record on an album that has gone bigger than the other records, I always thought a different record was going to be the bigger one. And so I feel like I can never accurately predict, but it's just timing of things, the timing of when records come out and what the climate of music is like at the time, or how this record just hits at a certain moment that resonates with more people. Like, I don't know. It could be that the record is talking about smoking weed and that elevated it too. I don't know. There's all these abstract things that are hard to duplicate, and I don't try to go like duplicate formulas when I make something. It's just let the moments come.
Well, just to dissect it any further, just in case anything comes back to mind, was it a particular platform you released that song on that may have helped?
No, well, what's funny is that Cadillac was released prior to the streaming era. So that album came out I want to say maybe streaming still, my memory is a little foggy with like timelines. Maybe streaming was a thing, but it was brand new. It was right around the time that Apple Music had just dropped, or maybe it was 6 months after or a year after, somewhere around there. But I remember it was fresh because I dropped Black Sheep 2 on DatPiff at the time. So that was like, DatPiff was the main place that people were getting music. I wasn't even concerned with the streaming stuff at the time, because it was so new and like we weren't sure how much money we'd actually make off streaming. So I don't know, it was YouTube, DatPiff, and streaming services.
Streaming came about after Black Sheep 2.
Okay, yeah, right
so
after.
Dropped on DatPiff first.
So it dropped on DatPiff first, then streaming came out. I released Black Sheep 1 and 2 on streaming platforms. But yeah, it's weird because the climate of what is people are going to consume music is kind of always shifting every couple of years.
But just, retrospect here, just in case anything else comes to mind, was it a cosign from someone?
I mean, I definitely had the cosign from Birdman on Black Sheep 2, which was amazing. I had a feature from Birdman. He was talking on the album. So I think there were a lot of those elements that added up to it. It was like I had the DatPiff homepage cosign, which was great. It was the first album that Birdman was all over for me, so fans were excited about that. But even all those elements together, I still don't know exactly why Cadillac, out of all the 15 records, was the one that came to the surface. There was just something special about it that resonated. I mean, it's still one of my biggest songs. I perform it at every show. And
we got a lot of love from World Star at that time.
Yeah, yeah, World Star. Oh yeah, World Star Hip Hop, huge platform.
Q was running at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
So speaking of that, in terms of the music video, because World Star was known for videos, did that get special placement when it released?
Yeah, I think it was top box on World Star. Yeah. Yep.
And speaking of that song, do you credit that song's success to the audio itself or the visual in terms of the music video?
I think it's both. I mean, it's hard to say one without the other because I've had great videos to other records that didn't take it as far, and I've had great songs in other respects. I think it's just the unique combination of the record, the video, the timing, the platforms. It's just all those things.
And assuming you were signed to Cash Money at that point of time?
Yeah,